aveo that I have to do a rack and pinion on, and I just told the owner, hey, it's most likely gonna need a wheel alignment because after I change the rack and pinion, the steering wheel may be a little bit crooked, so it's gonna have to go in for a wheel alignment after that. And I get in the car, and look, I'm going straight down the road, okay? Going straight. Look at the steering wheel. I don't think the steering wheel being a little bit crooked is any of their concern right now. Obviously, I'm gonna do a better job than this, whoever was in here last. That sucks. Just pulled in the Chevy Aveo to get started on the rack and pinion. Now the steering wheel is completely straight, okay? I made sure to leave it as straight as I possibly can. And look at the front wheels. Look how much that thing is turned out. Let's look at this side. Same thing, they're both facing towards the right. This is why you have to hold the steering wheel almost like vertical, you know, the Chevy emblem facing vertical in order to go straight. But what's going on here? What caused this? They just bought the car. I think this thing already had a rack and pinion thrown at it. That's why it's off so much. Alright, so I got the wheels off of this Chevy here. I can tell it's been to a shop recently. Number one, because the owner straight up told me it was at a shop. Hold on, I feel like I got a burp, but I can't. So I'm just waiting for it. Okay, so the owner said it was at a shop, and obviously that giveaways, we have a brand new strut assembly and a brand new lower control arm. See, the bushings look perfect, the paint looks perfect. Also, another dead giveaway is that the lug nuts for the wheels, these things were on here crazy stupid tight, like way over torqued. You could tell they just ran them in with an air gun and just, you know, full send. There is a clunking noise, and specifically on the front left side here while you're driving the car. And the stabilizer links don't look that old, but there's definitely some play here, and it's hard to pick up on camera, but the whole stud and the nut is moving, which tells me the reason why we're getting a clunk here is because this is not tight. I don't know if they tried to tighten it down and the whole stud started spinning and they had no way of tightening it, so they just left it. Or, you know, conspiracy theories. Let's go ahead and put on our tinfoil caps here. And did they purposely leave this loose? You know, so the owner hears the noise and they bring it back and they say, oh, now you need this. I don't know. I don't want to rule it out because I've seen that before. We're gonna try to tighten this up. That's definitely where our clunky noise is coming from. But it needs outer tie rods as well. I was moving it back and forth and I could just see this joint right here is loose. So I'm gonna call the owner and tell her, hey, if you bring me some outer tie rods, I'll put them on for free. I'm not going to charge any extra labor because it's included in the rack and pinion, and honestly, me not having to reuse these outer tie rods just makes the job easier for me. So why should I charge more to put new tie rods on it? You know what I mean? But you know, this boot, I did not do any of this. This was already like this, and look at the clamp right here. There's some proof that this thing is loose. So just put the socket on it, and that the whole stud is spinning. It's not just a nut. Alright, so I'm already out of breath. Can't get the freaking wheel off. Been wailing on it with my dead blow here for like 5 minutes. Penetrating fluid, hitting the front, hitting the back, it won't come off. Really freaking baffles me. All this shit is new. Someone was just in here. How is this wheel this stuck? Finally got the wheel off. This side also has a brand new caliper, and on both sides the pads and the rotors look to be new. Someone dumped a lot of money into this piece of crap car. Control arm on this side is not new, so it only got one control arm. Okay, so here's an update. I got everything disconnected from inside the car from the steering shaft. Everything that holds the rack and pinion is out. The lines, the two lines, the hard lines that need to be disconnected from the rack and pinion are disconnected. And as you can see, you have to drop the subframe. The subframe normally bolts up or butts up right against the body of the car. And as you can see, I have a good, I don't know, 3 or 4 inches. And that's like the bare minimum. As you can see, this right here is the steering shaft, and that goes into the body of the car. And with this gap here of the subframe, I have just enough space to slide the rack and pinion out of here, and it's gonna come out just like this. You know, if you wanted to, you could 100% drop the subframe. At this point, there's absolutely nothing stopping me from dropping the sub. Oh crap! I thought it was gonna fall. But there's nothing stopping me from completely putting the subframe on the ground. I don't think it's necessary. I got it held up with the red jack stands and my floor jack right there. But as you can see, I have more than enough space to get this rack and pinion out of here now. It's kind of a pain in the butt, but not really. It's not the worst job. But still, any job that requires dropping the subframe, I hate it. How bad this rack and pinion is. Just with it tipped on its side like this, you can see the fluid just pouring right. It's not even, it's only dripping out because there isn't any more fluid in the rack and pinion, but trust me, this thing has a constant stream of fluid coming out. Whenever you're doing work like this, it's wise to take care of things when you have the advantage over them. For instance, the stabilizer link, okay? The nut on this one would be on the inside, right? And with the subframe all raised up, you have no space to get like your impact gun or anything inside of here. And when you're dealing with stabilizer links, you absolutely want to be able to use an impact gun and some heat. So while the subframe is down, I took advantage of that, and I was able to, you know, first of all, break off the link itself, just pull it right off of the ball joint, and then you could grab the back of it with some vice grips and get a good grip on it, and then you grab your little torch or whatever you want to use to heat up the nut. So heat up the nut, and you have enough space right now to get a impact gun inside of there and take off the nut. It's way easier. If you were to put all of this together, put the rack and pinion in, and then at the very end decide, oh, I need to change the stabilizer links now, it's going to give you hell because you don't have much space there and you're going to be doing things manually. So I hope that all makes sense. I had another example of taking advantage of things. I wish I had done this when I was taking it apart, but it's my first time doing a rack and pinion on a aveo. But basically, I completely unbolted the rack and pinion before I dropped the subframe, meaning you don't have much space to get to the 4 bolts that hold the rack and pinion down. And I just realized, well, while the entire subframe is down, it's way easier to bolt it back up. So it's what I did. It's 100% bolted down now. Super easy. So yeah, my first, you know, when tackling a job like this, my first thought is to unbolt the rack and pinion, but really it's just easier to drop the subframe first, and then you get a lot more space to get to the rack and pinion. Look how much space you have here, as opposed to when the subframe's all the way up. So just experience, you know. Like I learned a lesson on this one. Next time I have to do a job like this, I'm gonna think twice about it and think, hey, maybe it's easier to just drop the subframe before I start unbolting the rack and pinion. And yeah, that's why it's going together a lot faster, because you just see how it's easier to do certain things. Alright, so here's a pro tip for pretty much working on any car. If you take a fitting off and the fitting has corrosion or rust on it and it's like hard to come off, and you have to use a wrench or a socket the entire way to get it off, you see it's off now. And if you still can't spin it with your fingers by the time it's completely off, then you want to make sure you free that up before you try to reinstall it on a new part. Because something like this, you always want to start the threads by hand, because it's super easy to cross thread things like this, especially on a rack and pinion. I see it all the time. People mess up parts and just create more problems than they need. So while the line is disconnected, I just went ahead and put my 18mm socket on my impact gun, and I just kept spinning the hell out of it and adding penetrating fluid until you see it's completely free now. And of course, once you're done freeing it up, hit it with some brake parts cleaner. And yes, I need to put a new O-ring on that before I install it. I do have a new O-ring for it. But since I could spin it by hand now, it's going to make reinstalling it super easy, and I could start the threads before I start using an actual wrench to make sure I don't cross thread anything. Quick tip is, whenever you get a new like power steering pump or rack and pinion, whatever, you see it always has these plastic caps in here where the threads are. Sometimes these could be a real nightmare to get off. So don't wait until the part is on the car to try to remove them. Like this one, I made sure to remove them before I even put the rack and pinion on the car. And then once you get them freed, you just want to go ahead and pop them back into place loosely, so when it comes time to actually put the line on it, you could then take it off. Good example, here's the other line that goes on the rack and pinion, and here's the fitting, right? So imagine getting this in place, going through all the trouble, you know, maybe even putting the hose on this end and the clamp, and then to find out you can't even spin this by hand to get the thread started. And if you have to use a wrench to try to get things started, that's when you're just asking for trouble. So Can't do this with two hands here. I'm gonna have to turn off the camera. Basically, get my impact gun, put the socket that fits. You get the idea. You know what, let's see if I can do this. Put the phone on my kneecap. Let this keep working back and forth. Maybe spraying some penetrating fluid. Maybe a little bit of a brake parts cleaner. Okay, let's try it out real fast. It's not perfect, but I could actually turn it with my fingers now. So I'm going to keep working it to make it smoother, but that's the idea. You don't want to put parts on like this if you can't spin them with your fingers, because then you're just asking to get something cross-threaded. Alright, so it's about 10 p.m. and I'm ready to call it a night. Pretty much everything is put back together. The subframe is back where it has to be. It's 100% bolted down. The floor jack is just there because I haven't moved it. It's not doing anything. But the rack and pinion bolted down. The lines to the rack and pinion, everything is in place. So if I wanted to, I could start pouring power steering fluid into it right now, but I'm not going to. I can't do anything with the outer tie rod and the stabilizer links because the owner gave me the green light to change these parts while we're in here. But she isn't going to be able to bring me those parts until tomorrow is what she said, so I have to wait on all of that. I still have to go inside the car and reconnect the steering shaft, but because I'm all dirty from rolling around on the floor here, I'm not going to get in her car with these dirty clothes. So that's going to be a job for tomorrow morning, and as soon as I get these parts, throw them on, and the car should be ready to go. Now, one thing I did point out to the owner is these remanufactured parts from any of these auto parts stores, they're not always 100%. So there is a chance that they could leak right out the box. I've seen it happen. It's happened to me, and it's not fun, and it sucks for the owner of the car. It sucks for me too, because then I have to do the job all over again. But yeah, I guess we'll find out. I'm just really glad all the hard work is done. Alright, so it's now the next day, and I'm starting to put everything together. I did get the new outer tie rods and stabilizer links. Now this rack and pinion that was on here, I could tell someone was in here already. This is a remanufactured unit already. And this explains why the steering was so far off. Basically, someone just did a shit job putting this in and aligning everything. There was a bunch of threads on this side. And on the passenger side, you can see we're pretty much maxed out. I haven't moved this yet. All I did was loosen the jam nut. But you can see there's almost no threads left. So I got both of the new end links installed. I got both of the outer tie rods installed. And on both sides of the car, I got about the same amount of threads left. This car doesn't give you much, but the thread count is just about even on both sides. And also the steering wheel is as straight as I can eyeball it, you know, something like that. So it's way better than the way it came in already. But I left the jam nut on the outer tie rods loose because now I'm gonna go ahead and put the car on the ground. Finish filling up the power steering system, and start making minor adjustments to the toe, and go from there. It's not going to be a perfect wheel alignment, but it's definitely going to be better than the way it came in, and of course it has to go in for a wheel alignment. So this is my second test drive. The first drive was just to see how bad or how far out the alignment was, and after that I took it back, made a few adjustments to the tie rods, and as you can see, steering wheel is straight and I'm going straight down the road. So it's not perfect, but man is it better. And obviously power steering now works. So let's see. Okay, going straight down the road, steering wheel is relatively straight. I'm happy with it. I'm gonna go ahead and lock down the tie rods, make sure everything is nice and snug. And that'll be it for this one.